officials. Powerful forces behind the damage caused to the Anaviludawa wetland still at large. The building collapse in Kandy was due to the construction being done on loose soil, a revelation from the National Building Research Organization. Draft of the 20th Amendment to be presented to Parliament tomorrow. Opposition says draft will be challenged in court. Financial misappropriation of 2 trillion rupees stirs global economy.
Hello there and a very good evening. You're watching Prime Time News on TV1. For the Newsfirst team, I'm Dasni Athaba. Starting off with your top story tonight. Venerable Ampitiya Sumanarathana Thera of the Sri Mangalarama Vihara Batiklo claims the excavations and demarcations of a site with archaeological importance in Chenkaladi Batiklo has been delayed. Visiting this archaeological site, the Venerable Thera strongly criticized the officials from the Department of Archaeology present there.
දැන් මේ ඊයේ අහලා තියෙන අපි ගියාට පස්සේ හරිද දැන් එතකොට මේ පැත්තේ දැම්ම තියෙන දෙතන නේද තමුසලා මොනවද කරන්නේ පුරාවිද්‍යාවක් කියලා ගන්නනවා තමුසලා ලොක්කා මිරිකන බෙල්ල මම යන හිරේක යන්න හරිද මිරිකන් එන්න කිපල් ලොක්කොන්න අපි යන්නේ ආද උඹලා ලොක්කොන්ට එන්න කිපල් නැත්තම් තෝ මම මරනවාද මේ පොල්ලෙන් ගහලා හරි මේ කිවරයක් වෙන්න බලන්න මහත්තයෝ මේ බලන්නකො මේ ගල් බැමිනේ ගලව හාන්නේ ජාතික අපරාධයක් නෙමේ කරන්නේ මෙච්චර වටිනා දෙයක් මේ හාලා විනාශ කරන්නේ එන්න කියපන් මෙතෙන්ට එන්න කියපන් අපි මොකටද කියලා කියන්නේ අපි මොකටද එන්න කියපන් ඕනම නැත්නම් එන්න ගහනවා එන්න කියපන්.
This site is located in the Pankudaveli Gramaseva division in Chenkaladi, and a hoarding erected at the site claims it is the property of the Department of Archaeology. However, Venerable Ampitiya Sumanarathana Thero claims as the archaeology officers had failed to demarcate the premises, the site of archaeological importance had been taken over by force for cultivation purposes.
මේ තියෙන පරිවාරක බැම්ම බෝධින් වහන්සේගේ සහ චෛත්‍යයේ පරිවාරක බැම්ම අපිට කරන්න දෙයක් නැහැ රටේ බුද්ධ ශාසන නැමැති තගමැතිතුමා අපි බලාගෙන ඉන්නවා මාව හිරේ යවන්න නැතුව මේවා කතා කරයි කියලා තාම අපිට සාධාරණයක් නම් උන්නේ.
Subsequently, the Thero occupied the temporary office of the Department of Archaeology set up at this site while forcibly detaining several officers and demanded the responsible officers be present to solve this issue.
අර ඉන්නේ මේක ආරක්ෂා කරන අයලු මේ පුරාවිද්‍යා දෙපාර්තමේන්තුවේ නිලධාරී මේවා මේ හානකම් බලාගෙන ඉන්නේ මේ කණ්ඩායම තමයි මම මේ ඉන්නේ ප්‍රධාන නිලධාරී එනකම් මම මෙතනින් එළියට යන්නේ මේ තුන් දෙනාත් එක්ක මම ඉන්නවා මේ ඒකලඩි පුරාණ රජමහා විහාරය කියන්නේ ක්‍රිස්තු පූර්ව 2-3 වර්ෂවල ඉදිවෙච්ච විහාරස්ථානයක් තව සති දෙකක් ගියොත් බෝධියක් ගලවලා දානවා.
Even after Sri Lanka police arrived at the location to ease tensions, the situation did not calm down.
එන්න කියන්නේ ජෙනරාල්ලයි අර ජෙනරාල්ලයි මේ ජෙනරාල්ලයි ඔක්කොටම කරන්න බෑනේ මුන් මෙතන ඩියුටියක් ඉන්නවනේ මුන් මෙතන ඉන්න එපායි දැන් මම පෙරේ දැනනකොට මුන් එකෙක්වත් නැහැනේ ඊට ඉස්සෙල්ලා දවසේ මම මෙතන දෙනකොටත් එකෙක්වත් නැහැනේ ඔබතුමාගේ චෛත්‍ය වටේට බලලෙන්න ගිහින් ඔබතුමාටත් කැක්කුමක් තියෙනවනේ ඔය ධර්ම ලාංඡනේ ගහගෙන ඉන්න එකේ පුංචි හරි කැක්කුමක් තියෙනවනේ දැනේ හදවතට ධර්ම ලාංඡනේටවත් ගැලපෙන්නේ නීතිපති උපදෙස් ගන්න ඒගොල්ලෝ යොමු කරලා තියෙනවා නීතිපති උපදෙස් ගන්න නීතිපතිගේ උපදෙස් පුරාවිද්‍යා සම්පත් වලට කොහෙද බනුත් නීතිපතිලා හිටියේ නීතිපතිලාට පුළුවන් රටේ හොරුයි තක්කඩි ටිකට මේ නීති පනවන්න ලෝතුරා බුදුන්ගේ දෙයට නීතිපතිගේ රෙද්දක් වැඩක් නෑනේ.
Subsequently, the Grama Seva officer of the Pankudaveli Grama division, the land officer attached to the Chenkaladi divisional secretariat's office, and locals who had cultivated near the archaeological site arrived at the scene.
දැන් ඔයාලා කවද්ද මේක මනින්ට කතා කරන්නේ කවද්ද?
Tensions at the premises only boiled down after a promise was made to commence the initial process of demarcation within a week to issue a gazette declaring it as an archaeologically important site.
හරිද? ගාම සේවකකම් මට මං සතියක් බලන්න.
The Central Environment Authority convened a media briefing today to explain matters pertaining to the environmental damage that was reported in the recent past. During the briefing, the damage caused to the Ramsar wetland in Anavilundava was also brought up.
Based on the statements submitted to court by the suspects in connection with the Anavilundava case, the chairman is yet to take steps to arrest or file a report against them. We inquired from the police in this regard. We urge the police to look into this matter immediately and to obtain a report from the chairman of the Central Environment Authority and thereafter inform the state authorities and the Defence Ministry in this regard. The others have not been arrested as yet. We handed over all the relevant information to the Wildlife Department. Legal proceedings are currently underway.
ඒ දෙපාර්තමේන්තුවට අදාළ සියලුම තොරතුරු අපි ලබා දීලා තියෙනවා අධිකරණ කටයුතු දැනට ක්‍රියාත්මක වෙනවා. ප්‍රධාන අමාත්‍යවරයෙක්ගේ සහෝදරයෙක් ඔහු පිටිපස්සේ ඉන්නවා කියන කතාව සත්‍යද? නෑ ඒක අපි සත්‍යයක්ද නැද්ද කියලා.
We are not sure whether this is true. It is the Defence Ministry's responsibility to confirm whether a sibling of a minister is responsible for such damage or not. The minister has dismissed such claims and has said that he is not responsible for this. However, the public will not be satisfied with such an answer. We are not empowered to obtain a statement from him. There is concern as to why the police is yet to obtain a statement from the suspects involved in the Anavilundava environmental damage. The public will question this issue, and this is a lapse on the part of the police. The police should be able to arrest them.
ඒ පොලිසිය වගේ පොලිසිය වැරද්දක් ඒක. පොලිසියට පුළුවන් වෙන්න ඕනේ අත්අඩංගුවට ගන්න.
Members of the Unemployed Graduates Association has staged a protest in front of the Presidential Secretariat today. They demanded their problems be solved immediately.
Protesters marched opposite the Presidential Secretariat from the Fort Railway Station this morning. Afterwards, they moved towards the agitation site. They request for a government job that suits their degree. I got my Bachelor of Arts degree in 2014. I waited for 6 years for a job. Since I did not get a job, I applied for a hospital labor post. I started working there to support my family financially. I have now been rejected.
We are asking for the 10,000 jobs promised by the President, including the unemployed graduates. Include us in the 10,000 as soon as possible.
Afterwards, a few protesters were allowed to have a discussion with an officer from the Presidential Secretariat.
What that officer told us was that he will inform the President in this regard and prepare a letter and completely resolve this issue. However, this is not an answer that we can rely on. We request for an appointment based on our degree.
The group continued to protest despite the rain.
The National Building Research Organisation said the construction of a building on top of a loose soil layer was the cause for yesterday's tragedy in Bhuvalikada, Kandy, which claimed 3 lives, including that of an infant. NBRO officer in charge of Kandy district, geologist Samantha Bogahapitia, after investigating the incident, said the soil layer was unable to bear the weight of the 5-storage building, which eventually resulted in the collapse during the early hours of yesterday.
The National Building Research Organisation says the 5-story building which caved in and collapsed in Bhuvalikada, Kandy yesterday was built blocking a valley path. Meanwhile, senior professor at the Department of Geology, Atulasena Ratna, also visited the site of the tragedy today. Following his inspection, it was concluded that the road outside the accident site had also cracked. This is a common problem in all slopes that can be seen in Kandy. This is just one place. There has been a ravine in this location earlier, but water has been blocked for some time. This area is called Bhuvalikada. All houses have been constructed on boo sand in the area, but this tragedy would have been prevented if the construction was done as the same strong foundation that is laid for the houses. The reason for this accident is the construction of this building, which was too heavy for the soil it was standing on. Dilanga, the owner of the house which collapsed, convening a media briefing, said that he did not have sufficient time to inform his neighbors of the collapse. I managed to jump to the house next to our building. Now we only have the clothes we were wearing at the time. My daughter sits for the advanced level examination this time. She was studying until 1:30 in the morning and we were with her while she was studying. We went to sleep after that. At about 4:30 in the morning, we heard a noise. Our neighbors were outside with torches. They yelled that the walls of our house are being cracked. Then we tried to get out of the house. But we couldn't as all the tiles on the floor were elevated above ground level. I built this house properly. This is my residence. The house was constructed by a particular company, but the State Engineering Corporation gave the approval for this construction, even for the reinforcement.
We built this house in 2006. We obtained all the necessary approvals at that time. We are deeply sad not for the fact that our house was destroyed, but for the tragic loss of a family that was living beneath our house.
I sleep on the topmost floor. Others in my family sleep on the third floor from the top. I woke up after my bed started moving suddenly in the middle of the night. I thought it was a dream, but later I realized that things were moving and dogs were barking outside. Then immediately I called my mother and told her I hear noises. I asked her whether a robber has entered the house. Samara Singh, who is our neighbor, had told my mother that the posts outside our house can be seen gradually cracking. I cannot remember as to how the roller gate was opened. We got into the vehicle as soon as possible and reversed the vehicle all the way to the road. When we were reversing the vehicle, a clear split in the ground could be seen between the ground where the house was located and the road. Then I drove towards the lake club with my family in the vehicle. When we were on our way, I called police at 5 in the morning. I can show you my call logs. The time difference between my call to my mother and the police is just 7 minutes. Although the residents of the house claim that they left the house at 5 in the morning, police say with the early signs of the accident, they have left the house around 3 or 4 in the morning. Police further said that they have not informed the neighbors or the police regarding the accident. Police said if the residents had informed them, they could have taken swift action to evacuate residents living in nearby houses. We went through all the relevant documents we got from the Municipal Council. In 2016, they have sought the approval for the 4 stories. Only for 4 stories. If another floor had been built, that has to be after the approval was granted for the construction of 4 stories. Therefore, it has to be illegal. With the collapse of this 5-story building located on Sangamitta Road in Buwalikada, Kandy, 3 people in the same family, including a child, had to pay the price.
MP Anurakumara Dissanayake appeared at the Presidential Commission of Inquiry probing incidents of political victimization with regard to a complaint filed by the former Director General of the Sri Lanka Tourism Development Authority, D.S. Jayavira.
In a complaint to the Presidential Commission, Jayavira claimed the case was filed against him on bogus charges and his arrest during the period of the Government of Good Governance with regard to a SLTDA program to promote local tourism was politically motivated. Counsel for Dissanayake requested for copies of the evidence records as her client had been named as a respondent in the complaint.
We are ready to provide details if Gotabaya Rajapaksa asks us for details in order to punish Ranil Wickremesinghe and Arjuna Mahendran, who are charged with the bond scam. But I know we will not be questioned on this matter. When one group comes to power, they commit corrupt acts. When the other group comes to power, they protect those who committed the corrupt acts. This was made very clear when Ranil Wickremesinghe, who was named a respondent, was named a witness by the Presidential Commission yesterday. This is very clear. Some time ago, this act was only taking place backstage, but now everything takes place on stage. The drama where Mahinda protects Ranil and Ranil protects Mahinda. The people of this country have witnessed this act for more than 2 decades now.
The former Director General of the Commission to investigate allegations of bribery or corruption, Dilrukshi D.S. Wickremesinghe, also made an appearance at the Presidential Commission of Inquiry. inquiry. Former Minister Rajitha Sena-Ratne was at the Presidential Commission of Inquiry with regard to a complaint filed by the former chairman of Rakna Arakshaka Lanka, Victor Samaravira.
We have been summoned to the commission because of our attempts to punish the wrongdoers responsible for crimes and murders. When one group was busy doing this, the other group was busy forming deals with various factions. But in such a deal-making environment, there are some who stay true to their policies. This is politics.
The Commission to investigate allegations of bribery or corruption filed a case with the Colombo High Court against former Finance Minister Ravi Karunanayake and Arjun Joseph Aloysius. 6 separate indictments were filed against the suspects for leasing a luxury penthouse in Kolpiti using the money of Perpetual Treasuries Limited and Walt and Rowe Associates Private Limited when Karunanayake was serving as Finance Minister in 2016. The Bribery Commission said in order to prove the charges, the prosecution will produce 58 witnesses. The Bribery Commission said in order to prove the charges, the prosecution will produce 58 witnesses and 31 material evidence in court. In addition, the Court of Appeal ruled that the examination of the writ application filed by former Minister Ravi Karunanayake and 6 others against the warrants issued by the 4th Magistrates Court with regard to 2 bond auctions will commence on the 18th of December.
Former Secretary of Defence Hemasiri Fernando has said that the former State Intelligence Service Director must have emphasized the seriousness of the warnings that were received before the April 21st attacks. He made these remarks in a testimony at the Presidential Commission probing the April 21st attacks.
Former Defence Secretary Hemasiri Fernando told the Presidential Commission that the foreign intelligence warnings of an attack were not specific and did not indicate a threat to national security. He told investigators that the State Intelligence Service Director is at fault for merely passing on the warnings instead of submitting accurate observations and recommendations that highlighted their importance. The witness insisted that the SI's director should have stressed the importance of the information in order to take appropriate action. He told the Commission that local intelligence units had also not provided definite information indicating a threat to national security during his term in office. The witness claimed he did not observe a connection between the vandalization of Buddha statues in Mavanalla, the recovery of explosives in Vanathavilua, and the bicycle explosion in Kartankudi that occurred in the run-up to the bombings. However, he admitted that these incidents indicated that bombs could be manufactured in the country and that there was a danger in the country. However, the former Secretary of Defence said that the National Security Council had not taken any decision regarding Zaharan Hashim, who was later identified as the mastermind of the terrorist attacks. He said that the former SI's director had been reluctant to discuss the foreign intelligence warnings at the National Security Council meeting as well. Meanwhile, the former Secretary of Defence also refuted claims made by former President Maithripala Sirisena that he had made false accusations during his testimony at the Presidential Commission. Issuing a statement yesterday, the former president had refuted claims made by the former Defence Secretary at the Commission last week. However, Attorney at Law Dilshan Jayasuriya, appearing for Hemasiri Fernando, told the Commission that the statement released by the former president had instilled fear in his client. He argued that refuting claims by issuing a statement while not using the opportunity to cross-question the witness during the sitting had completely undermined the authority of the Commission. Accordingly, he requested the Commission to summon the former president's personal secretary who had published the statement and to ask him to show cause on why it could not be considered as contempt of the Commission. Attorney at Law Charita Gururatne, appearing for the former president, said he was unaware of the media statement and that he had not been informed about it by his client. Accordingly, the Commission ordered the counsel for the former president to make submissions during tomorrow's sitting.
A meeting was convened at the Presidential Secretariat at 5 p.m. this evening for all cabinet ministers. Subsequently, the meeting of the parliamentary group of the Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna commenced at the President's Secretariat. Also in local news, the draft 20th amendment to the Constitution is due to be presented in Parliament tomorrow.
The court should also look into whether the constitutional amendment will fit into the basic constitutional framework of our country. I cannot give you a clear-cut answer on whether the 19th Amendment is good or bad. We must protect the positive attributes of the 19th Amendment. Rather than submitting the draft constitutional amendment to the Cabinet for review, we propose that a committee should be appointed to review each section of the amendment and submit a report to the Cabinet thereafter. it would have made things easier for the cabinet as well.
මේ ගැන සාකච්ඡා කරන්න.
According to the Parliament procedure, the first reading of the draft amendment will take place in Parliament tomorrow. Thereafter, there will be a week to file objections in the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court, within a maximum time limit of 3 weeks, has to inform the President and the Speaker regarding the Supreme Court's decision in this regard. If anyone wants to amend the draft, this can be done during the committee stage. This is the parliamentary tradition. However, we will never agree to abolish the Gazette.
නිකුත් කිරීම අපි සාමූලිකව ප්‍රතික්ෂේප කරනවා. ඒක කිරීමට කිසියම් රජය එකඟ වෙන්නේ නැහැ. දැන් ඔබතුමාගේ සභාපතිත්වයෙන් කමිටුවක් පත් කරලා නිර්දේශ යෝජනා කර අගමැතිතුමාට
The government must reach a decision. Various views were expressed in this regard, which is characteristic of any democratic system. This is a good thing. During the committee stage, anyone can propose amendments. If a majority is in favor of such proposals, they will be considered.
ඒ සංශෝධන පිළිගන්න පුළුවන්.
The Samaki Jana Balavega appointed a special committee today to discuss the 20th Amendment. The relevant committee regarding the 20th Amendment to the Constitution was appointed today during a workshop held at the Parliament complex to educate the parliamentarians of the Samaki Jana Balavega. The committee consists of Ranjit Madhuma Bandara, Dr. Rajitha Senaratna, Field Marshal Sarat Fonseca, Kabir Hashim, Mano Ganesan, Eran Vikramaratna, Imtiaz Bakir Maka, Lakshman Kiriyal, Dr. Harsha De Silva, Attorney at Law Suren Fernando and Attorney at Law Shiral Laktilaka.
We discussed what needs to be done in the near future for the people of this country. We discussed several matters including the necessary amendments that needs to come in place. We appointed a committee of 11. We will be meeting again tomorrow. It was the people who gained power from the 19th Amendment. The sovereignty of the people was strengthened. The 20th Amendment weakens the sovereignty of the people. We believe that a constitution that undermines the sovereignty of the people needs a referendum. I think we have 14 days for that. During this time, we hope to go to court based on the fact that this amendment requires a referendum.
What does it mean if the President and the Prime Minister remove their secretariats from the audits? If they are removing the companies run by politically appointed chairmen from the audit? On one hand, they are removing everything from audits, and on the other, they are getting immunity from the judicial system. How can this be justified? A civilized president always allows his financial practices to be audited. If there are any obstacles to this, he should remove them. Those are the features of a good ruler. But deceitful rulers, rulers who commit fraud, are always afraid of audits. That is why they want to remove this. The court is not looking into whether it's fair or not. The court is examining whether it needs to be passed with the 2/3 in parliament or whether it needs a referendum. I think if they reveal the things in the 20th Amendment before the election, they wouldn't have got this mandate. If they announced before the election that they are going to give the president immunity, that the state companies would not be audited, or the emergency bills can be put into parliament at any time without the people having the right to question it in courts, the dual citizens get the right to compete and be elected to the House without any hindrance. The limit of 30 ministers and the limit of 40 deputy ministers will be removed. They wouldn't have got this result. Therefore, this result has been obtained by getting the people to sign on a blank piece of paper. This document was prepared with that signature.
Today marks the 24th day of the Gum at the Door-to-Door initiative. A number of unresolved issues were heard by our teams in a number of villages, namely in the Batiklo, Kandy and Monaragala districts.
This is the current situation of the Dilanga valve in Monaragala. The valve which supplied water to the entire village has turned into a pile of mud by now. These people receive rain only once every year. That rainfall too is useless as it falls on the thick mud layer of the valve. Farmers in the village who have cultivated more than 100 acres are now helpless. If this valve can be renovated, life will be replenished in the village and the country can be nourished with its harvest. People in Ardeniava, Urudumbara, Kandy have to live within the elephant fence, and the elephants live outside the fence. The elephant fence has been built by blocking 3 elephant passes. When villagers request the wildlife office in Hasalaka to chase away the elephants, they ask villagers to show and tell them as to where the elephants roam. These villagers receive 3 firecrackers to chase the elephants. It has been 3 months since all of that ran out. Villagers in 250 families living in Rajature Nagar in Batklo make ends meet by engaging in labour. They have to walk for more than 3 kilometers to quench their thirst. They have to walk in this manner to fetch water, while the Uchimunekkulam Vaver is right there in the village. The Vaver, which provides water to the entire district, is however prohibited to the villagers.
Committee appointed to look into the allegations of irregularities at state banks and affiliated institutions during the last 5 years has received more than 100 complaints. The Finance Ministry said the complaints were made by the respective banks, trade unions and the general public.
As the committee continues to receive complaints, it was decided to extend the deadline given for the acceptance complaint to the 30th of September. The committee is chaired by former High Court Judge Sisira Ratnayaka and also includes Chartered Accountant Susanthi Silva and retired Additional Auditor General W. Premanandan. A representative of the Finance Ministry will serve as the Secretary of the committee. Complaints can be addressed to Director General, Department of Public Enterprises, Ministry of Finance, the General Secretariat, Colombo 1, or to the email depicted here.
When we talk about the Credit Information Bureau, or more commonly known as the CRIB, many are of the assumption that only those who default on payments are included in the CRIB system. But does the CRIB actually blacklist individuals? This is what the General Manager of the CRIB, Nandamitra Anthony, had to say.
The answer is no, absolute no. There is no blacklist in the CRIB. We don't blacklist people. That is a very wrong understanding of CRIB. It is totally wrong for any lender to say your name is in the CRIB, therefore we cannot give you a loan. The image that is given about CRIB is that we blacklist people and only the people who have delayed to pay or couldn't pay is on the CRIB. CRIB merely provides data to facilitate a lending decision. The lending decision is entirely the prerogative and the responsibility of the lender. And the borrowers have a very bad understanding as a result of the CRIB. This should not be so. If a lender says, your name is in the CRIB, therefore we can't give you a loan, that is not something that should not be said. Everybody's details are in the CRIB. Moment you go and get a credit card, moment you go and get a loan, those data are reported to us from the lending institutions, those respective lending institutions. There are 8 million plus people's data on the CRIB. My message is, if somebody tells you your name is in the CRIB, therefore I cannot give you a loan, please say, how can that be? That's not possible. Because there is actually no compulsion on lenders to even take a credit report before they give out a loan. There's nothing to say you have to take a credit report before you give out a loan.
FinCEN, a bureau of the United States Department of the Treasury, leaked documents involving about $2 trillion of transactions and have revealed how some of the world's biggest banks have allowed criminals to move black money around the world.
The FinCEN files show the investment scam started soon after the bank was fined $1.9 billion in the US over money laundering. It had promised to clamp down on these sorts of practices. The scam is known as a Ponzi scheme, a notorious type of investment racket that pays existing stakeholders with money collected from new members. The FinCEN files are a leak of 2,657 documents, at the heart of which are 2,100 suspicious activity reports. The documents relate to more than 2 trillion of transactions dating from between 1999 and 2017. Banks send suspicious activity reports to the authorities if they suspect customers could be up to no good. By law, they have to know who their clients are. It is not enough to file suspicious activity reports and keep taking dirty money from clients while expecting enforcers to deal with the problem. If they have evidence of criminal activity, they should stop moving the cash. One of those named in the suspicious activity reports is Paul Manafort, a political strategist who led Donald Trump's 2016 presidential election campaign for several months.
The Minister of Sports, Namal Rajapaksa, states that arrangements will be made for the best 10 athletes of this year's National Sports Festival to train abroad. He further said that, as in the past, the best athlete of the festival will not get a car.
The Minister of Sports and Youth Affairs expressed these views at a lecture held in Colombo today on building the future of sports by creating a professional sporting culture.
How many playgrounds are there in a village in Sri Lanka today? How many people take advantage of these grounds? Why can't we win the 2-mile swim when we have a sea around the country? We do not have this many marathons and bicycle races than in Sri Lanka, anywhere else in the world. Why can't we win these international titles? There is a sports association that has won all over the world. Every time that association is elected, they earn from TV rights, and then an interim committee comes. Then the account will be empty. As a ministry, we have identified 3 main pillars and esports as a new thing in the future. The first pillar is leisure sports. The second pillar is competitive sports. The third pillar is the sports economy. We will increase the sports economy in Sri Lanka to $1 billion. For some, that is a problem. I strongly believe that $1 billion is a small amount. This year we are putting up 333 outdoor-based functional training centers with a low-cost, high-efficiency structure.
Functional training centers 333ක් මේ අවුරුද්ද අපි දානවා.
Meanwhile, during a question and answer session held after the lecture, the minister commented on the Sugatadasa Sports Complex in Colombo.
Today, Sugatadasa gets 16 million rupees a month from the government to pay wages. There is no other institution in Sri Lanka with such facilities as Sugatadasa. It is a 27-acre land in Colombo. A private individual earns 20 million a year from the car park next to Sugatadasa. But we have to give 16 million a month from our account to Sugatadasa.
And that's a wrap of Primetime News for tonight. For the News First team, I'm Dasnia Salda, along with our interpreter tonight, Taraka Gabriel. Good night.